Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So my name's Katie and today I'm going to pull my top up a bit. Today I'm going to be talking about some books to read if you like the Wheel of Time TV show or the books. So disclaimer, I haven't actually read the books. Okay. If you've watched my channel for any length of time, you know this. I've tried to read the Eye of the World a few times and I promise I'm gonna do it soon. But yes, I watched the first 3 episodes of the TV show and I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun and I think it's a really good adaptation. I don't know, I mean I can't compare it to the books, but I think it stands on its own. Watching from as someone who hasn't read the books, I think it stands on its own well. And I really like the characters and just I like the kind of visuals as well. I like how light it is. You can actually see what you're watching. I think it does a good job at kind of establishing its tone. Like it's not just a new Game of Thrones, it's kind of its own thing, which it is. Like the Wheel of Time is pre-Game of Thrones, I think, I'm pretty sure, so the books. But anyway, that's the different tangent. So I'm going to be talking about some books with kind of those like classic fantasy vibes. So this is based on like mainly what I know about the Wheel of Time from like things I've heard. And I know it starts because I've read the beginning. So I know it starts with like Rand and his little sheep farmer. And then discovers this big destiny. It's like chosen one. It's kind of almost good versus evil type thing. And there's it's epic in scope. There's a big cast. So they're the kind of criteria I've used for the books in this video. So hopefully you'll find some recommendations here. I think if you're a big fan of fantasy, you'll definitely have heard of these. But hopefully this video will like appeal to fans of the show who maybe want to get into fantasy. And if you like the show, you might want to try these books. So yeah, let's just get started. So the first one is a classic, and so Brandon Sanderson, who actually wrote the last few books in the Wheel of Time. Well, he wrote them, but it was Robert Jordan's like ideas, but he like actually wrote the words, because Robert Jordan unfortunately passed away. So his, I think, writing style is quite similar, and obviously I can't compare it to the Wheel of Time because I haven't read it, but I think it's really good. There's a lot of sort of things like foreshadowing and things that come into play later on. His books are all really epic. And so I've chosen The Final Empire here because I feel like this is a good place to start with his books. And also we're kind of following Vin, who's like suddenly thrust into this destiny that she never knew she had. I don't know, because I feel like Stormlight is kind of, it's not quite the same thing. And maybe it's similar, but I don't know. I thought the Final Empire was a bit more apt. And yeah, we're following like a group of characters. So basically Vin is a kind of orphan on the streets and she discovers that she has something called a Mistborn. So in the world, the powers, you basically have different metals that you can ingest and give you different powers. And so if you're misting, you have one type of metal that you can ingest and get that one power. But if you're Mistborn, you can ingest all the metals and get all the powers. So Mistborn are quite like highly prized, I don't know if that's the right term, but they're quite rare anyway. So Vin discovers she's a Mistborn and she gets taken in by this, I don't know what Kelsier is at this point, but sort of a like, no, not really a crime lord, but like he's almost like a rebel type thing. So she gets taken in by Kelsier and his crew and they're plotting to overthrow this evil lord ruler. So that's kind of what the story's about, and it's really good. I love Brandon Sanderson's stories and writing, and his writing is very like easy prose. It's not overly lyrical or anything, but it's just really easy to read, and I think it's a good place to start for fantasy. And introduces like a lot of concepts that you might not have seen before if you're new to fantasy, but are quite established in the genre. And Vin is such a likeable character. And Kelsier is likable in The Final Empire. That's all I'll say. But yeah, so that's that one. Then next we have Malice by John Gwynne. And I think this is probably the most like similar comparison I could come up with, because it's very like, we're following this little village and the main character like Corbin and his sister Sven, and I still don't know how to pronounce her name. I say Sven, but some other people say it's Cywen, but anyway, I thought it was like Gwen, but it's with a C, so I don't know. But anyway, so they're just living their life in this little village, and then suddenly the old, I don't know if it's the old gods or like the old magic starts rising and people start getting killed, and there's various like prophecies, and it's kind of good versus evil. Like there's almost like an evil god and like a good god, and then they kind of battling it out. So that's the story. And I love Corbin in book one. He's such a little cinnamon roll. And so we're kind of following his journey to like becoming the hero, which I think is also what Wheel of Time's about, like becoming the hero. And following a big cast of characters. We get to see lots of different sort of character backgrounds and character morality. Like some of the characters are on the good side and some are on the bad side, and you see quite a lot of the POVs of all the evil characters, which I think is interesting. It has one of the best, I don't even know what to categorise it as, I'm just going to call it a Calmo-Ash friendship. Which is really good. And yeah, it's just a really great epic series. Like it's 4 books and they're all quite chunky, so there's a lot to like sink your teeth into. And yeah, the characters are really fun, and yeah, it's just you read it and you feel nostalgic for like the classic fantasy. I don't know, so I just really enjoyed it. And John Gwynne actually I think is really good at writing sort of battle scenes, and like I do think sometimes for my personal taste there are a few too many like sword fights and battles and things, but they are written really well. And I think if you like them, then it's definitely good. And the last book especially, actually, the battles are so good and they managed to like keep it fresh. So yeah, I would highly recommend this series. I'm not sure I did a great description of what that was about, but hopefully you got the gist. Yeah, okay. Then next we have Dolores of Calderon by Jim Butcher. So I love this series. This is a Codex Alera, but I'm not a big fan of Jim Butcher's other series, which is the Stormfront, or what's it called, the Dresden Files. So I absolutely hated Stormfront. It's probably one of my worst books of all time. But I really liked the Codex Alera when I read it. And again, we're following Tavi, who's like this little sheep herder living in his little valley. And it's very like Roman Empire-y. That's the kind of vibes you get. And it's almost like, they're not exactly Pokemon, but there's these things called Furies, and like people combined with a Fury, and it gives them powers, and they're sort of elemental, the Furies, so different people have different sort of elemental powers. But Tavi is like Furyless, so he's magicless. So he's always been different. And then I can't remember exactly what happens. I think they get the kind of enemy race, like the Trollocs. They're not Trollocs. Trollocs are a Wheel of Time thing. Also, the Trollocs on the Wheel of Time show look so good, like maybe too good. But yeah, so the enemy race like comes back into the valley and they get attacked, and then it's all just like war. It's very epic. There's like 6 books, so there's a lot to read. The audiobooks are narrated by Kate Redding, who does the Wheel of Time audiobooks also yeah, the Brandon Sanderson, his books narrated by Michael Kramer, who also does the Wheel of Time audiobooks. I just them two, it makes me so happy that they're like married in real life. But yeah, so anyway, and yeah, it's just quite epic in scope. There's a lot of characters that we meet. Like Tavi's not the only character, there's quite a few different characters. The second book kind of has it's not exactly a magical school, it's like a magical academy trope, which I really liked. And I actually really like the humour in these. And Tavi is just such a lovable character, like, oh, bless him. But yeah, so I would recommend this series. Yeah, even if I'm not the biggest Jim Butcher fan, but I still really like these ones. So, and I actually really like the Aeronauts Windlass, so he's very hit or miss for me, that's all I'll say. Although there is a bit of I wouldn't have said he treats his female characters the best. There are definitely better books in this video for female character treatment, which I think all the other ones are actually pretty good, but this one just maybe a bit iffy, but I would still recommend it. It's a good series, but yeah, anyway. Okay, then next we have The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. So this is another one where there's these 3 characters called Davian, Weir and Asher, and they are just living their life at this little school for like gifted people who is like magical people. Although the gifted are quite looked down on in society, like they're not really trusted, because in the past they've been like, people have used their magic for evil, so now they're all a bit suspicious of anyone with magic. But basically one day the school gets attacked and everyone is killed except from like these 3. So then they have to go and like go on their little journey. This one definitely, like, the book, their like place of living gets attacked at the start of the book, and then for the rest of the book they're kind of journeying to where they can get help, which is very reminiscent of the Eye of the World. But yeah, so anyway, they're all discovering their destinies, and it's good. And then they meet a character who basically can't remember anything, but he's, yeah, so I think he's in prison when they see him, or he's been captured or something, and he just has no memories of anything. But yeah, and there's like a dark one on the rise, or I'm not sure he's on the rise, but there's been a dark one in the past. And yeah, there's just lots of mysteries about the kind of hidden magic and things. Writing style as well, I'd say, is very similar to like Sanderson, Jordan-y. Like, it's very kind of easy to read, not overly descriptive, but it definitely kind of gets the point across well. Gets very epic, and there's lots of different characters and like storylines, but I like how we still sort of get to see our like four mains and their sort of stories and their journeys. And yeah, I just really like it. They're just like a bunch of little disaster teenagers trying their best to save the world. And there's some really cool magic which plays around a bit with time, which I really liked. It's not exactly time travel, but like just the kind of manipulation of time. Like, there's a character who can create little bubbles of time and then like escape and things. So yeah, it's good. And the Argers, they're the kind of gifted people, like supercharged, and they're sort of coming back into the world. So that's a big mystery, and that they can like see the future and things as well. So it's very interesting. So yeah, I'd recommend that series. The series is called the Lycanius trilogy, I think. So that's that one. They're all quite big as well. They're good to like sink your teeth into. Okay, so the next, I just realised this video has a lot of old white men fantasy, but this one is still a man, but not white. So that is The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. And especially the later books in the series, well, The Wall of Storms, and I'm guessing the rest, because I haven't quite read The Veiled Throne yet, but I think it will, get very, very epic in scope. So this one is kind of, this one reads very historical, and it's this kind of almost overthrowing of an empire, and there's various different factions and like allies, and then they get betrayed, and there's all sorts of different like maneuverings going on. And then there's a kind of pantheon of gods who are like interfering with events, and like they each have their own champions, and they're trying to root for their people and trying to subtly manipulate events. And the main character, Cooney, is like just a little like village boy who's like quite unremarkable, but then slowly he sort of, through sort of luck and like other characters he meets and like his own sort of drive, and he has this saying where he'd always do the most interesting thing, slowly sort of rises in power. And I think that's really interesting. Just really love all the themes in this book. Like, there's such interesting discussion on sort of society and different things, and especially like women's role in society, because I think in The Wheel of Time it's maybe not executed perfectly. I haven't read it, so I can't say, but I think the idea of the kind of women having the magic and being in the power, I think that's a theme that's explored in The Wheel of Time. But in this one, it's sort of like women's role in history, and how, although sometimes they're forgotten by history, they have their own sort of agency, and they can use what their like roles are to enact change. And especially in the later books, well, Wall of Storms, there's some amazing female characters, and it's just so good and like so empowering, and oh, it's just really good. So yeah, I would highly recommend this series. In the sequel, there's like an unhinged MILF, amazing. This like scholar who I love, she's really good. And yeah, I just love all the kind of court drama, and like there's just so much sort of action. There's a lot of military and like battles and things as well, like, and I actually quite like how we don't see the battles in detail. It's almost like a bird's eye view, and you just have a lot of focus more on the strategy, which is actually what I like. I find that more interesting than just reading about people sword fighting. So yeah, that's that one. And then the final book I'm going to talk about is Legacy of Ash by Matthew Ward, and this is another quite epic series. It's a little bit different in its kind of setup, I would say. It's almost a bit creepier. I don't know how to say it, but actually watching the Wheel of Time show, the first few episodes, there are some kind of horror elements to it, which I really liked. So in the Legacy of Ash, basically in the prologue, there's this famous sort of rebel who she's led this rebellion and then she gets killed, and then now we're following her children, so these two siblings, and just trying to like navigate the politics, and there's a lot of sort of maneuvering of different factions and various, like, the magic is sort of subtly there, and especially in the second book we see more of the magic, and there's some very, yeah, like I said, creepy elements to it. So there's a thing called the Crow Market where there's these like bird people, and they sort of have quite a bit of magic, and then there's this light magic, and there's a bit of interference from the gods as well. And yeah, there's just a lot of characters. It's quite epic. There's a lot of kind of political manoeuvring. It's actually really hard to describe the plot, but yeah, there's just a lot going on in the world. There's huge like kind of cultures and things, so it's really interesting, and I would highly recommend. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments a book that kind of reminds you of the Wheel of Time. And yeah, I would love to know, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I hope you're all having a really great day, and I'll see you next time.